Shalom, everybody. This is Brian Newman on Let's Talk Shalom on C10. We air on Friday nights and Sunday afternoons. And letstalkshalom.com is our website. So we have previous episodes. You can watch live current episodes. And I have my podcast on there as well, and my books, and my life coaching business, and also my ministry partner's homeless ministry, Hugging Homeless, is there as well. And if you ever want to know more information about a guest, like Jeff Smithson here, who's on with us again, you can reach out to us and we can put you in contact with them if you'd like to learn about their ministry or their business. And today we're talking about fostering, like foster parenting and adoption. David Platt did some research. He's a famous American preacher. And I believe it said that if one church, if every church in America adopted one child out of foster care, the whole foster care system would be completely empty. So fostering is a big need in our country. Adoption is a big need. And I'm talking with someone who's actually done both. So if it's something you guys are interested in or you have experience in, I think you'd really relate to Jeff Smithson. Smithson, I need to enunciate.
It does not roll off the tongue well.
I need to enunciate. I speak Appalachian American sometimes. It does. All of our letters don't get said. So Jeff and I met at a pizza place called Gabriel's, totally divine appointment, a couple of weeks ago. And we started talking about life. And I was a quarter-point special advocate for children, which is a child... Department of Children's Services takes a child out of the home. They appoint a CASA, quarter-point special advocate for children, to go in and help make a determination the child should be with a parent or a grandparent or foster care or whatnot, or a guardian ad litem. So I was not in the volunteer end of the court side. And Jeff's actually done fostering and adoption. So we're going to let him talk about that. So you... So if I understand correctly, you started fostering and that turned into an adoption?
So at some point, I've had a vasectomy and a vasectomy reversal, and my wife, went from never wanting to have kids to wanting to have kids, and yet we were having problems having kids, but we felt like kids were in our future. Didn't know how, didn't know what the avenue was going to be. And on the same day, my wife, she called me. I'm driving down the road and she says, God said, look into adopting. And I said, he just told me that too.
Like at the same time?
Like
same day?
Within the same 15-minute span.
Wow. I'm
driving down the road, going to work, and she's at home. And so we were like, okay. And we went to a conference in Nashville, and they had different agencies there, DCS, and all kinds of resources. And really, the thing that stuck out to me the most of that event was, it was in a church, and they were talking about, what Jesus did for us and becoming saved and becoming children of God, and God adopted us, and they just kind of said it nonchalantly, but then they got around to, okay, how many of you in here have been adopted? And like 10 people rose their hands. He says, I don't think you guys heard me the first time. And then everybody like, oh yeah, I have been adopted by God, and so then like almost everybody raises their hand. So that began the journey, and we started with DCS because we looked into what adoption would cost, and it's ridiculous.
And it's so it's so cheap to end a life comparison to sustaining and changing a life, just on the legal side, just up front. It's sad.
And so, we were kind of directed toward fostering to adopt. Now, the foster care system is its whole monster, and it would challenge anybody who goes through their classes to become eligible to foster. It'll challenge you on every single level that you have and levels that you didn't know you have. But knowing, God had us on this path, we persisted. I actually took the class twice because the first time I took it, it just made me so angry. The things that they were saying didn't seem to make sense. And then you finally just have to go with the flow, get your certificate so you can get kids in your home that need to be in your home. We fostered teenagers and some younger children. My goodness, there's such a need for stability in their life. It's awful. It's heart-wrenching.
So is it true if you're a foster, they just basically give you a hefty bag with your clothes in, and you just go in the next house with nothing?
You might get a trash bag full of stuff, roaches included.
Yeah.
You might not get anything but a car seat. So you just kind of be prepared. You don't know what's going to happen. Some people are already fostering these kids, but they need a break from them.
Yeah, they need respite care.
Yeah, and so, you know, we were taking the respite kids quite often. We didn't know where this was going to go. We didn't really see. We just knew we were going in the direction we were supposed to be going in. And then one day, I'm at work, and my wife, she gets a call at home, and they're like, we have 4 siblings that need a home immediately. And it's like, we lived in 700 square foot.
And you get extra strength foster care.
We couldn't take 4 kids, and we had to say no. They called my wife back, says, can you take the older one and the younger one? And it was a 3-month-old and a 4-year-old. And
all these are little bit. The oldest is 4.
yeah, the oldest was 4. So there were 2 boys in between that age group. And they all had been born into a meth home environment, a drug environment, and they all had developmental issues and problems. And they're pretty much locked in a room, and the 4-year-old was watching the other kids.
Yeah.
And that's actually what led to one of them dying, and DCS got involved. So anyway, we got the call, can you take the older and the younger? And we said, yes, we can do that. And then, you know, we go to the hospital, we got to stay there all night. They got to make sure you know what you're doing with the kid. And I don't know if it's helpful or not, but so the boy was he was on death's doorstep. I mean, you could see through his skin, all his ligaments, his bones, all his veins. His head was so big compared to the rest of his body. He was cross-eyed with Duane's syndrome because he didn't have, you know, someone holding him. He didn't have any use of his eyes that way. And he had almost starved to death. And after a week of being in the hospital, he was still under 5 pounds.
How old was he?
He was 3 months old.
At 5 pounds.
That's after a week in the hospital.
Wow, of being nourished, like intravenous probably.
And I remember walking in that room, and he was in this little glass plastic box that they put the babies in. And he was just staring up to the ceiling, not responding to anybody. And I put my finger in his hand, and he grabbed my finger, and he looked at me. And this is what I said. I said, hey, little fella. I said, we're going to take care of you from now on. And inside, I knew he was my son.
The spirit of adoption just came out.
It just hit me. And we even had a time during the fostering process, you know, visit with the biological family and the other siblings, and they ended up giving up their rights. And something that doesn't ever happen is that by the time the parents gave up their rights, the judge got the paperwork. We were adoptive parents in 2 weeks. That didn't happen. That was total God all the way through.
It usually takes months,
so
years.
That is not the norm. Most people, it could be a year, 2 years before they make steps toward adopting. But we were in a kind of like a drone strike situation. You know, God sent us. We came in. we took these kids under our wing, and then we got out of the system.
And they weren't in the system super long.
No, just barely over 6 months.
Wow.
You have to foster 6 months before you can adopt.
My former boss, I'm a social worker. I help people, adults with disabilities, like you described, but on the adult side. He grew up in foster care, and he just aged out of it. Or he got adopted. He was like 17, but he was his entire life in it, for the most part. After he was a young child, and some people spend up to 18, they just age out. Mm-hmm. So it's a huge blessing for them to not. They only been in that short of time.
We had a couple that were fixing to age out, and man, there's just such a void inside of them, and it was just awful to see. And
you turn 18, and there you go out in the street. In most places, I know Eastern Europe, that's a huge problem, is that you just turn 18 and they're drug dealers or prostitutes because there's nothing else for them to do. I know there's a big problem in Haiti. There's an initiative called Project 7 through New Reality International, and they actually have a trade school there. It's an orphanage, but also a trade school. So they teach them an occupation before they age out. And my friend Echo Garrett helps lead the Orange Duffel Bag Initiative. It's in North Georgia. And they mentor high school students. They're in foster care or adopted, and they help to mentor them through high school and help them get into college. And once they're in college, they help mentor them too. But it's Orange Duffel Bag Initiative because Echo is an editor and a writer, and she helped edit a book for Sam Bracken, who was a foster kid and grew up in that system. And he talks about just having here's a hefty bag, go next house with a trash bag. But the kids are transitioning, they give them a big orange duffel bag full of clothes and things they need as well. Mm-hmm. So that's called the Orange Duffel Bag Initiative. But because of what you said, they just, here you go, here's a trash bag, and drag it with you, and you have no sense of permanence. Nothing ever belongs to you. It's like that duffel bag's like the first thing that was ever theirs. It's hard to watch that.
Just, it's hard enough relating to God when it's time, for you to do that for yourself. If you had imperfect parents, and then when you have like no parents for a long time, and you're just in and out of homes, just what does that do to you in forming relationships? What does that do to your outlook on the rest of your life? You were thrown out at an early age. Is God going to throw you out?
Because you relate to the physical father as a spiritual father, and if you're just transient, nobody wants you, there's no home for you.
Mm-hmm. That's really why a lot of people take so long to get to God, is they're afraid that God's mad at them, that he's going to beat them over the head with something, he's going to tell them they're stupid, and
he'll be just like Dad.
He doesn't do any of that. He's so good.
In Psalm 68, Psalm 68:6, it says, he places the lonely in homes, but the rebellious live in a sun-scorched land. But I like that emphasis, and he places the lonely in homes. And Isaiah 58 talks about, he talks about the Sabbath, you don't buy, sell, work, or true fasting, like they were telling me. That's half of it, but the other half of it is no, this is the kind of fast I really want you to do, not just don't eat, but I want you to take care of the poor, the orphan, the fatherless, the widow. And that's the biggest thing, despite all this outward stuff you can do, the biggest thing, one of the biggest things in Scripture is the fatherless. Mm-hmm. Isaiah 56, Isaiah 58, it's just a theme all throughout, is the whole nation was judged for abandoning the fatherless. Mm-hmm. And but the people taking care of the fatherless, they need support too. Like we see these big giant families, you got cousins and aunts and uncles and grandma and grandpa and like this whole giant clan of people living on the same street taking care of like one or two children, but you have foster children. You need that support even more. We don't have that in our society. It's like mom, dad, two kids. It used to be this giant family just to support a child or two, but if you have your own kids and you have foster kids, you really need the support of your local church and your community. And we want so many people to adopt and foster, but are we willing to give them some backup when they do it? Some respite care or just cooking a meal or whatnot. So when you guys were fostering, did you get any kind of support like that from your church family or community or
well
around you?
Okay, so we weren't set up for a baby. We've been taking little kids and older kids at that point. And my wife got off the phone. She made a few calls to our church and some close friends, and within 4 hours, we had everything we needed to take this baby home. And this little girl, toys, car seats, crib, just everything. It was amazing. So what would we have done if we didn't have that support? I'm not sure. I might have had to left the hospital and go on a Walmart spree. I don't know. And we didn't have the money for that.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. But what was your?
What is just the need to support?
Oh.
Did you guys get some support, and was it like sustained?
Okay.
Like
Now-
everybody's here's some diapers, but you're on your own, or that you have continuing
So-
support this process?
We got what we needed immediately, and then we got some things through the agency that we were affiliated with, Youth Villages. They did a great job there in Nashville, so kudos to them. But funny enough, not funny, when we started fostering and it looked like things were going to go toward adopting, everybody in my wife's family was like, don't do it, don't do it. It'll wreck your life, it'll ruin your home. And her sister was a social worker at the time. It's like, my goodness, And my family was for it. But we knew we had God's approval, and that's all we needed.
So it's not just like an overactive sense of compassion or wanting to do something, not wanting to know what to do. Let's adopt someone. It was God directed, and it was discerned out and prayed out. And
Here's just a few things. If you want your life to matter, you got to do the hard things. The difficult things are where the true rewards are. And if your life is just to be easy and to avoid pain and hardship, your life is going to be pretty much pointless and useless. And that's just true. So don't be afraid to do the hard things. It matters. When you stand before God, it's going to matter what you did. And a lot of people think, well, I just can't do it, or, I'm turning 50 this year, and I should be getting closer to getting a boat like most people would, or a motorcycle, having my,
your midlife crisis.
Yeah. And
Get your Corvette.
honestly, I can't go that route because there's not enough worth in it. Purpose. If it doesn't have purpose, I don't want to be involved in it. Life's too short. You only got so much energy and time. You can't just put it toward playing.
Chasing after the wind.
Yeah, keeping yourself entertained. I mean, come on. We can do better than that.
That's what Solomon talked about, because he said he held nothing back. He literally tried everything in existence. As the richest man in the world, he had access to women, to drugs, to fanciest chariot, the biggest house. Took 7 years to build his house, because out of cedar. He had everything imaginable. And at the end of his life is Ecclesiastes, and he's the most depressed human being you've ever met. Because he's like, I blew my entire life. Now I'm old, and all I have is stuff I don't even like anymore. Like the food doesn't taste good, and I don't like this place. And he just chased the wind for so many years with unlimited resources to do it. And at the end of the day, it was just, I should have done something that mattered.
Across the panel, that scripture that you mentioned, take care of orphans and the widows and to keep yourself pure. This is actually a religion that God recognizes and commends across every boundary, nation, culture out there. Those three things God commends. And, there's keys of the kingdom. And like, if you show mercy, you'll be shown mercy. If you judge harshly, you're going to be judged harshly.
Spiritual law.
No one wants to pay attention to that, but it matters what you do. And, make your life worth something. You're not going to be on your deathbed thinking, man, I wish I had one more motorcycle. I wish I filled out one more form. for my accounting firm. No, it's going to be who you poured your life into, and did it make a difference?
Something that will survive you. A quick note on the spiritual aspect of adopting and fostering. John Paul Jackson, I think his dream interpretation course, so I learned dream interpretation from. He has something called the Father's Blessing, where he comes in and he would just pray over someone and give them the blessing they never had, like Isaac got it from Abraham, Jacob got it from Isaac. And some people believe in soul ties and generational curses. Like if someone were to adopt, I believe it's very important to pray over this child, you don't know where they came from, what they've been through, break off any trauma, any generational curses, give them a father's blessing. And we always provide spiritually, emotionally, financially, but there is like a blessing you can give in that father position that you can remove a lot of what came before. Like in the ancient days, if you were adopted, if you were grafted into Judaism, your life before was considered never have happened, and they couldn't even talk about it. But also in the Roman law, if you were a natural born son, you could be disowned from the inheritance, but an adopted son could not. So they took it very seriously. And there's a lot of spiritual principles there, like spiritually filling in the role of the father. Because if you take on that authority, you have authority in the spiritual realm to break some of that off, and I think that would prevent some of the problems that foster parents go through.
Time and time again, you come across people who've had their first kid, and they're like, I finally understand how God feels about me. I finally, you tapped into a facet of our Father's character.
Be made in His image.
Now, when you do the sacrificial thing and you adopt somebody, that person might be thankful, they might not be thankful. More than likely, they're not going to be very cooperative for a long time. They're not going to be thankful maybe until their late teens, maybe even early adulthood. But you tap into another facet of God's character when you step out and you adopt. You pour your life into somebody. He is pouring His life into us day in, day out. He lets the sun shine on the wicked and the righteous. He lets the rain fall on the just and the unjust. So if you're only in for something for a personal fulfillment and gain, you're missing part of God's character. But you're going to need everything you can get from God, honestly, if you move into adoption. You need every resource that He will pour into you. Pray, receive, and pour out. Absolutely.
Speaking of resources, if you'd like to get involved or help, like being a court-appointed advocate in National CASA like Spanish for House, national, CASA.org. So you can become a court-appointed special advocate. And the Orange Duffel Bag Initiative, look that up. It's a great work. It's in North Georgia mostly, but they'd like to expand. They help children, they mentor children in high school that are in foster care and also going to college. Those are two great resources. And if you're having a baby, if you have a baby you just can't take care of, you want to go to a good home, my friends Mark and Sarah in Nashville, they help lead a church. They're great people. I've known them for years. They've been looking to adopt a baby for a really long time now. So if you'd like to reach out to Mark and Sarah for your baby to have a good home, please reach out to me at letstalkshalom.com, or you can email me at shalomdearheart@gmail.com and help out with that. And we're about to run out of time. I'm going to ask Jeff to tell us what a church or a community could do to support parents that are fostering or adopted, and then ask them to pray us out when we get to the 30-second mark.
I know there are some churches out there that are focused on this, and that's wonderful, but it is such a small fraction, and there's such a great need out there. People who are taking this hard road, they need help. They need financial resources. They need breaks. They need food sometimes. They need someone to cut their grass. I mean, reach out, reach out, reach out. If your church doesn't have some type of program or something that people who want to go this route don't know where to start something. This is about people. God's about people. Now, as far as the government, I really would like to see them offset the price of adoption. Maybe they're doing it more than they used to. I don't know. But when we looked into it, it was like 12 to 30,000 to looking into adopt, and
You spend it now up front in a good way. You can spend it later in juvenile hall and jails and courts.
it's like, okay, you have the money, or you had the money,
Yeah.
because all that money that you saved up is gone, and wouldn't it be better if that person still had the money to help with their family?
Yeah.
And
Bigger house, more supplies, clothes, all the things children need, you know, and the family needs. And we got 30 seconds, so you want to pray us out and pray for the families. And
Father, thank you for your heart of adoption. You reached out, you came after us, and you drew us into your family. Father, I pray that the spirit of adoption would just go out to anyone and everyone that you would see fit to find someone, to bring them into their home, to draw them and to point them to you, to save them. In Jesus' name, amen.
Shalom, everybody. This is Brian Newman. I'm the host of Let's Talk Shalom. And I want to make you aware that we have a website, letstalkshalom.com. That's where you can see our previous episodes. You can also watch live on there. And additionally, I have some books I've written on there. One is on a commentary to the book of Ruth about courtship in the modern world. And the other is a devotional book based on some writings I had. And it's got resources in it and prayers for people going through some of the things I've been through when I was in the military, when I was orphaned, and other things happen in life that might encourage you or someone else. It's a great gift idea. And I'm also a certified life coach, specializing in dream interpretation. So if you have a dream you would like looked at, the first one's always free. So I take your dream and I help you understand what it means, but help you understand the direction God's trying to give you through that dream and how to access those resources and those people that you need to accomplish your mission in life and your calling. I just call it dream coaching. But you can contact me at shalomtoyourheart@gmail.com, and letstalkshalom.com is our website. You watch previous episodes, or you listen to a podcast, order my books, or contact me about dream interpretation and life coaching. Thank you all, and shalom to your hearts.